Welcome back to another episode of the Property Pickle with John Howard. Hi, John. How's it going today?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. Battling on.
Well, today we're talking about bridges, and this one is the bridge.
Yeah, do we have to? Oh, go on.
We've all been on the bridge that keeps going, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's why they call it a bridge.
Yeah, the
bridge too far. Yeah.
This is the bridge that keeps on stretching. So
bridge too far. Yeah.
What happens when your 6-month bridge becomes a 9-month headache?
Yeah.
It's our scenario for today's pickle. Okay. An investor buys a tired semi-detached on a bridging finance with the expecting a quick refurb and a quick refinance.
The famous quick refurb. We know what that's like, Michelle, don't we?
We do. If you find anyone, let us know.
Yeah.
The builder is behind schedule. The lender is only going to extend at a higher rate. And the investor's now worried that they're not going to hit their original target GDV. So let's have a look. What's this scenario about? It's all too common, isn't it, that people take out these bridges. They expect it to take 3, 6, 9 months. And sometimes it goes on much further, right? People end up at the end of the 18 months. They've run out of time and they have run out of options, run out of exits. So,
well, I mean, we've all been there, by the way. I mean, at the moment, planning is taking up to a year sometimes by the time you've got organised, done all the consultants they want, gone for planning. So even on slightly bigger developments, it's happening everywhere. So, everyone's in the same boat, everyone. And of course, bridges love it. Bridging companies love it. They make it, it's a big problem. You're going over. They love it for 2 reasons. One, they don't have to lend that money to anyone else. And the second thing is some of them will take great advantage of you and absolutely murder you on the rate. So if you go over what's called the banking mandate, that's normally the time in which you're meant to pay it back in. So the first thing is, if you think it's going to take 6 months to do, borrow the money over a year. I know it's a problem for some people because, you need to find more cash because they take the interest up front. Now, 1 or 2 bridges won't take the interest up front. They will let you pay as you go along. Okay, so that's one question you can always ask them. The other way of doing it, I think, is if you do break your banking mandate and you can afford to pay the interest on a monthly basis, do so. Do so, because at least then it's not mounting up and up and up and up and up. And they will have great confidence in you if you can do that. Great confidence. I've got one at the moment, which is exactly what I'm doing, because we haven't finished the development. They've come to me and I've said, okay, I understand where we are, and I'll pay the money monthly. It's eye-watering, and I won't tell you what it is, Michelle, but that's just how it is, And everyone has these pickles. Everyone gets into these pickles, and that's what the show's about, isn't it, Michelle? Yeah, we're all in the same boat. We might have another 0 or 2 on, like we said before, but in the other show, but we're all in the same boat. So always assume it's going to take 3 to 6 months longer than you think. And even then, that may not be enough. Now, the other thing is, when you're picking a bridger, I always ask, and they don't like it, they get the arse on, if I'm allowed to say that. Ask them where they're getting their money from. Because at the end of the day, it's not their money. They're just a super broker, if you like. I call them super brokers. They don't like it when you call them that, by the way. But they're getting their money from somewhere. So I want to know where they're getting their money from, because if it's a small fund or they're getting it off, high net worth individuals, are they high net individuals going to keep sending it to them? Are they? You really want, a lot of them use some of the big banks. So realistically, what they do, they borrow the money off the banks at about 7%. And they lend it at 12, and that's the margin. So what's really important to them are fees, because the fees pay on the whole, the fees pay for the overheads of the office. So that's why when you go over the banking mandate, they go, well, we want an extra 5% fee, or we want 2%. Read the small print if you can within what the agreement. Don't be that desperate to sign it that you haven't read it thoroughly. I mean, you need a solicitor these days. If it's a personal guarantee, you need to use a solicitor to anyway, because they want proof that you've taken advice on it and so on. But I want to know that they're borrowing the money off some of the big banks, because then I know on the whole that, the funds will keep coming. Because I've known one or two small bridges to go bust halfway through. So you may not have a problem, but it could be the bank's got the problem and can't send you the next tranche of money. So that's so I've known that situation, and also I'm quite wary with these crowd funding platforms as well, because again, it's not their money. They've got quite often a lot of small investors putting the money in. So, and the other thing you can do is always look at the reviews online and see what people are saying about them. That's always a really good one, Michelle. I know you do that all the time. I know you're like the data queen, aren't you? You're like, you're the due diligence queen, which I'm not, of course, but you are. So I'm sure all these things you do anyway yourself.
Well, it's all out there to be found, isn't it? So you've got to, this is a lot of money we're talking about, and
huge amount, and a lot of these bridges are ruthless, absolutely ruthless.
Yeah,
and you don't want that. I would say the bigger ones are probably, depending what relationship you've got with them, of course, but you need to have a good relationship with them, don't you? And I think property is all about relationships, isn't it?
And when you've got a relationship with a bridging finance, what are the benefits what does that mean in real life?
What
the benefits of having a great relationship?
Well, I think if you do have a problem, can you trust them not to shaft you, to be quite blunt about it? Are they okay? They might want a little bit more. Of course, don't forget the one thing it doesn't tickle me because it's expensive. We all have to use bridges by one way or the other, and even these banks are very expensive these days. But full well it's not their money when you find out who the lawyer is on the other side of the transaction. So the lawyer is some fancy London lawyer that charges God knows how much an hour, and you're paying £3,000 or £4,000 or £5,000 for them to sign a couple of bits of paper and check a few things. That's not the bridges lawyers. That's the lawyers who lend the bridge of the money. So they're checking. It's not their money. It's the main big dog, as I call them, big dog bank that lend to small dog bridger. It's the big dog's lawyers checking everything's okay. That's what it is. And you find out, some fancy firm in London that you'd never ever go to yourself because you can never afford to. They're the ones on the other side, and your solicitor's battling with them to get the money off them. And so that's a telltale sign, really, who you're dealing with. But relationships, very important that you can, whoever you lend the money off, if it goes wrong, yes, they might want a little bit more, but they'll be sympathetic. They'll try and help you. They might have to lend you a bit more money to get you and them out of jail, because it might have gone wrong. It happens all the time. And by the way, they make out, it's never happened before. You've gone over it happens every day to them, and they don't mind. As long as they know they're going to get their money back eventually, they're going to make a lot more money than they would have done if you paid it back on time.
Right. So keep the communication open is key.
Absolutely. I think so. Don't you, Michelle? Is there anything else you missed, do you think, on that?
Yeah, no, just especially if you want, to do business with them again, if things don't go wrong and you can communicate with them, then chances are they'll work with you, and then you can, you can solve that problem and move on to the next one.
One thing I would say is speak. If you think you're going to have a problem and you think you're going to go over, speak to them early. Speak to them. The earlier you speak to them and explain the situation, the better it is. Do not try and bullshit them. Don't blag them. And any bad news, keep them up to date on a daily basis if you have to, or a weekly basis, what's going on the sales, on the bill costs, whatever it might be. The more information they have, the more likely they are to support you and help you. If they think you're taking the you-know-what out of them, then that's when they will can get very aggressive, because their agreements are torturous. Their legal agreements are torturous. So again, like we said in the last show, I think, about agreements, if you have to get their agreement out, good luck, because it's all one-sided.
Okay. Well, I think part of the problem is that people, they plan for the perfect refurb, but then they don't actually plan for delays, disappearing trades, the rain, right, whatever it is. And and it's just about planning for the worst case scenario. And then again, it's all about risk mitigation, right?
I think you're absolutely right, Michelle. And we've all been in this situation, and anybody out there that can come to you, they can come to me, both of us, if they've got a problem and we can help them, we've both seen it all basically over the years between us all. So, we're here to, if we can help, then contact us, because it is a worry. It is stressful. I know, very stressful.
Yeah. So what someone can do in this type of pickle, first of all, clear communication, negotiate an extension early, keep that communication going throughout. Explore potentially selling part of the deal, getting out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the refinance, if they really punish you on the refinance, if they're really punishing because you're going over, you could always go to another bridger.
Or private investor.
Or private investor, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And what I would say is these banks and bridges need to lend money. They're not doing you a favour. You're doing them the favour. They've got millions of pounds that they're paying so much for to have on call from these big banks, and they need to invest it. They need to make it work for them. So they're under pressure as much as you are. And they have to report probably every month or every quarter of all their loans, how they're working out, what's happening to them. So if you think they're giving you a hard time, imagine the hard time they're getting off Big Dog Bank who've lent them the money, because that's what happens. So that might make you feel a bit better.
Well, remember, guys, always have, a couple of exits before you start.
Yes,
and John,
absolutely.
You mentioned before about, you use this word about being desperate. Don't be in a desperate position where you just want to get the deal done. Make sure it's the right deal. You've got enough exits. You've got enough space in there so that delays are not going to break the deal. They're not going to break you. So make sure you factor all of those things in, and then it'll be a solid deal, one that you can go into confidently. You're not going to lose sleep at night. And if things don't go to plan, which, they probably won't, in which case you factored that in, and you can get out of it on the other side and have a successful deal. So yeah. Cool. I think that's probably a good place to wrap that one up. Some key actions people can take is have a look at different bridging options, before you need one, because chances are you're going to come across a deal and you're going to want to move quickly on it. That's where you use bridges. So look at different bridging timelines and exit options. John, you mentioned before, is worth paying a bit extra to get the maximum amount of time, because it's the time that kills a deal, not always, something that goes wrong. Sometimes it's just things that go on too long.
And what I would say, Michelle, they can contact you, they can contact me through our social medias, all the rest of it. And if we can put them to the right bank, or the right, introduce them to the right bank, what I'm very happy to do so, as you are, I'm sure, Michelle, because it is horses for courses. Some bridges like some things, other bridges like other things. So, and if it's a bigger deal, then I've certainly got a few banks who are quite keen to lend at the moment. So, if we can help, that's what we're here to do. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Right. That's it for today's episode. Thanks very much, guys. Do check us out on social media and the Key Club podcast show notes, where you can find links to all of these. We look forward to hearing about your pickles, things that you got yourself out of, and also, if we can help, let us know. Take care and see you next time.
Bye-bye.